Coming to you from the Hudson Media Group studios, this is Talking Politics, and I am the professor, Fernando Uribe. There's a lot to discuss, so let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Folks, of course, the news cycle has been extremely traumatic for many of us as we're all sort of self-quarantined and experiencing this sort of unprecedented coronavirus crisis, not just here in Hudson County, but throughout New Jersey and ultimately throughout the entire United States. So first and foremost, I want to wish you all hopefully that you and your families are safe and healthy. Do practice responsible social distancing, and of course look after any elderly neighbors, elderly family members, any children, and any sort of vulnerable members of the family that may have pre-existing conditions. And hopefully we'll get through this. We're strong, we persevere, and we'll make it out of there hopefully much sooner than later. But currently, one of the big crises that's being discussed in today's political cycle is the popularity of the president. And without a doubt, watching CNN this week, I came across a Gallup poll sort of attesting to the president's popularity and his approval rating. And of course, folks, it must have pained those at CNN, starting with Chief Executive Officer Jeff Zucker, sort of working their way down the hierarchy there, to see such positive numbers for the president this late in his first term. Let me just sort of give you a little bit of context here about what we're looking at numbers-wise. And just to sort of give you a perspective, now currently right now, folks, in a new Gallup poll conducted by CNN, 49% approve of the job that Donald Trump is doing as president, while only 45% disapprove, which at the time matches the highest approval rating he's ever had in a Gallup survey. As a matter of fact, a Monmouth University poll right here in New Jersey that was released this past Monday showed that President Trump is also at a 46% approval rating. Again, it's the best he's done in that poll in more than 3 years. Now, certainly one of the big questions about this Gallup poll is what accounts for the president's rise in his popularity. And simply, it's been his response to the coronavirus crisis. Now, in the same Gallup poll, 60% of Americans approve of the job the president is doing in handling the current crisis, while only 38% of those disapprove of the job that he's done. Now, 6 in 10 independents approve of the job the president's been doing concerning the coronavirus crisis, and of course, 1 in 4, comprised of 27% of Democrats, feel the same way. Now, in that same Monmouth poll I just mentioned, folks, 50% say the president has done a good job with the coronavirus, while only 45% disapprove of his current job. Now, the heightened approval for the president and the way that he's managed the crisis, particularly among independents and even some Democrats here in New Jersey, is what's pushing up his overall approval numbers in this election season, which have been, let's be honest, very stagnant for the first 3 years. But one of the things, folks, that I've talked about at length, and listen, certainly this process has not been perfect. I've had some disagreements about how the president's gone about this. There are times that he addresses the media from the White House with members of the CDC and also members of his medical team, along with Vice President Mike Pence. And at times the president, let's be honest, tends to sort of piss everyone off with being impulsive and maybe being a little over anxious in the way that he addresses the American public and even how he addresses members of the media, which, as we all know, he can't stand, and we all know that the feeling is indeed mutual. Now, one of the things that's been sort of, lost in the shuffle here before this pandemic took place was the idea that the president's job approval for the economy and also in other elements, as well as criminal justice reform, and also nominating good centrist judges to not only the federal judiciary, but obviously his 2 recent Supreme Court picks, have brought the president much approval, not just among Republicans, but many independents, which he knows he needs to be able to win later on this year on Tuesday, November 3rd. But without a doubt, folks, one of the things that the president was sort of, galvanizing his base about was the fact that the Democratic Party was indeed in a little bit of disarray. And folks, let's be very clear, and I'm not here to sort of play politics despite the fact that you might think I'm doing that, but let's be real and sort of looking at the landscape. The Democratic Party has had 4 years to nominate a candidate that they feel could unseat the president. They were all disappointed, and they took a serious L in 2016 when they put all the chips in the table behind Hillary Clinton, and we all know what happened. All right, as yes, she won the popular vote, but again, what matters is the Electoral College. And then candidate Donald J. Trump won the Electoral College in a pretty convincing fashion. But one of the things that the Democratic Party wasn't anticipating was, despite all of these witch hunt investigations and a lot of sort of the friction that exists between Democrats in Congress and the president has been able to survive a lot of landmines. And he's done that sort of pretty respectively. The one thing I would say, though, that sort of keeps working in the president's favor is that people are still not necessarily falling out of love with the Democratic Party, but are really overwhelmed with sort of the presumptuous nominee at the time. Now, of course, the delegate math is working against Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, and certainly it's working in the favor of former Vice President Joe Biden. Now, of course, a lot of things can change in the coming weeks and months. As we all know, primaries have been pushed back because of the current coronavirus pandemic. And we'll see what happens leading up to the July convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. But without a doubt, the Democratic Party has had 4 years to get this right. The Democratic Party has had 4 years to find a candidate that they feel would have the best opportunity to unseat the president. And the best they've come up with is Joe Biden. Folks, I'll say it again, Joe Biden. Now, I'm not going to get sort of engaged in the name calling that some people like to do online, or even some of the name calling that the president likes to engage in. Let's be very fair, and I don't want anyone accusing me of being an ageist or discriminating against elderly people because, listen, I have plenty of elderly members of my family. My grandmother's 101 years old, my dad just turned 75, and my mom is in her mid-60s. So clearly, I am not someone that wants to sort of ridicule or minimize the elderly population. But folks, Joe Biden is showing serious sort of moments of mental decline, and he's just not sharp on his feet anymore. He used to be a good debater, obviously back in the Senate days, and certainly when he was running for president the first time in 2008. Now, he wasn't a very good candidate, but he was very sharp and very sort of quick on his feet. And even in a recent debate with Bernie Sanders, we all seen that decline right before our very eyes. Now, again, you can say what you want. You might just say, hey, I'm going to vote blue no matter who, because it's about unseating Donald Trump. Well, you're entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to your ideology. But you're not entitled to your own facts. And the facts are that, again, even before this pandemic, the president was sort of, in my opinion, cruising to re-election. Now, again, those chances have been dampened by what's going on with the economy and certainly what's going on with the response concerning the coronavirus crisis. But I know the president and the CDC are working together to sort of, meet this head on. And of course, my condolences and my prayers go out to the families that have been affected by the deaths due to the coronavirus. And of course, I know this is a very difficult time for families everywhere, not just in Hudson County, but throughout the state of New Jersey and even throughout the country. But folks, again, it is an election season, and while we don't want to think about politics, it is indeed inevitable. We'll find out what's going on in the weeks and months ahead, but I'm sure that we'll get past the coronavirus crisis. But one thing that the Democrats can't get past is the crisis of their candidate and whether or not he can ultimately unseat Donald Trump. And folks, this isn't a prediction, this is a spoiler, but coming up on Tuesday, November 3rd, the president should cruise to re-election because Joe Biden just doesn't have what it takes to unseat the president. We're all going to find that out later on this November. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. On this week's edition of the 3-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, which you can listen to live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson, was indeed a doubleheader, with starting off with the distinguished chairwoman of the Hudson County Democratic Organization, and she's a regularly scheduled monthly guest. It was indeed Amy DeGise. We talked for almost 60 minutes on a variety of different topics. But one highlight that I definitely want to bring to your attention was sort of asking her about the sort of ongoing tension that exists between herself, her dad, the Hudson County Executive Tom DeGise, the Hudson County Democratic Organization, and Jersey City Mayor Stephen Fulop, who recently introduced his council slate. And without a doubt, Amy didn't pull any punches as to what's going on with the relationship between her and Jersey City Mayor Stephen Fulop, and of course what's going on as he seeks re-election in November of 2021. Let's check out what she had to say about this topic.
Steve went out of his way in trying to manipulate a situation. He obviously, embroiled my mayor, Brian Stack, into this whole web of craziness that sort of embroiled the county in 2018. But a lot of people locally will say, hey, I don't know if Tom, and again, via connection with you, Amy, it's your dad. Like you're the chairwoman of the party, but first and foremost, you're a human being. And it's your dad. Yeah. And a lot of people are going to say to me, Fernando, deep down, maybe Amy is still a little salty, and rightfully so. It's her dad. She didn't like seeing her dad's name dragged through the mud. I'm sure your dad didn't like seeing his name dragged through the mud. going on 2 years already, was, I think, for a lot of people, inexcusable. And it really, made Stephen Fulop lose some political capital. It made him look really bad. It's 2 years later, but it seems a lot of people locally would say to me, you know what, I don't think Tom, and I don't think, via Amy as well, have really forgiven have forgiven Stephen Fulop about this. And I think it might take some time for Stephen Fulop to get back into the good graces of the leadership of the HCDO. Is there any truth to that whisper and rumor that I keep hearing in my ear?
More than just my dad, because you came after family, all right? So, right there, we're going to have an issue. I'm defending family through and through. But what I saw it as, and a lot of other people too, was you're hurting someone who's spent his entire life advocating for this community. Before it was filled with high-rises and cute little coffee shops. He started the first neighborhood watch in the Heights. He started groups for committee people to talk with the local police department and do some community policing. He started a careers program at Snyder High School and chose to stay there instead of leaving that school. And people are like, oh, that's a bad high school. So you took a knock not just at someone who's my dad and one of my heroes, but you are taking a shot at a man who wants nothing more than just to be a civic leader. He never looked for higher office. He doesn't have a firm. He's not a consultant. He's on nobody's payroll. And it just was a shot that was not necessary towards a man that, dedicated his life to Hudson County and Jersey City. And what it looked like was not that you didn't like my dad or the county executive, but that you had something to gain from his loss. And that's what I think put the saltiness in there. Not just that it was family. And that's why I say, I think professionally, politically, we could be on the same page. We have our agreements. We have our disagreements. Are we inviting each other to each other's birthday parties? Probably not. And I think we'll never each reveal our full hand to the other person. But I don't want to see him fall on his face. I don't want to see him hurt. I hope, and I don't think that he wants to see me hurt either. We don't want to destroy each other. We're not hanging pictures of each other in the bathroom. That's an Italian thing. If you hang someone's picture up in the bathroom, you put them a look on them. And believe me, those pictures have been in my bathroom. But, I think that it'll always be on a mind, like a cheating ex or something like that. You're like, I remember that time. But, we grow, we learn. And for me, I prioritize things, and that's the bottom of my priority list, is worrying about what he's doing or what he thinks. I just hope that he does a good job for the city. I like his leadership. I agree with things. I disagree with things. And I think that's every constituent, So that's about it.
Okay. Listen, really good, very diplomatic answer. That's one of the reasons I love you on this show. You're not afraid to answer a question, Amy, and I appreciate that.
As you can tell, the chairwoman isn't shy about expressing her feelings, and certainly there is still a lot to be repaired between sort of the ongoing relationship between Jersey City Mayor Stephen Fulop, the Hudson County Democratic Organization, again, her father, the county executive, Tom DeGise, and of course, how she feels, not just as a daughter, but more so about the chairwoman here for the Democratic Party in Hudson County. We'll find out what happens in the weeks and months ahead, but without a doubt, Amy DeGise will continue to be a monthly guest on the podcast, and she'll always have a lot to say about the political climate, not just here in Hudson County, but also statewide and as well as the national political scene. Now, the second half of the doubleheader for the podcast this week was Union City police officer and the CEO of Pina Productions, Carlos Pina. Now, he's been a distinguished member of the law enforcement community in Union City for well over 10 years. And we talked for almost 60 minutes about what's going on in Union City, about the current coronavirus, what's sort of taking place with the good work that Union City Mayor and State Senator Brian Stack is doing, and of course the overall great efforts by the Union City Police Department during this ongoing pandemic. Let's hear what he had to say about it.
This is, this is unprecedented. Things are confusing at times, but we're holding our own. We have a very good leader, Chief Luster. She's working extremely hard. And we're out there. EMS, our dispatchers are doing a wonderful job. They're screening calls, and we're out there. We're out there for the public.
Carlos, again, obviously, we at the general public may not be privy to this information. I know certainly we want to maintain all sense of privacy during the broadcast, but I know that in recent days, I know you reported on your social media I know other reputable news organizations such as the Hudson County View and Hudson County TV have reported some cases in Union City. Again, I'm not trying to have you out names or anything, or if you're even privy to that information, but are there specific areas of Union City that residents should be concerned about because of where these cases originated from, or is it just one of those things where it's just residents that have contracted it in one shape, form, or another?
To answer that question, me personally, what I feel that's important is the fact that we know that residents have it in Union City. And the reason being is that people could take it seriously because, I'm patrolling and I'm watching people walking on Bergen Line and on the side streets, and I'm thinking to myself, what are you guys doing? Stay at home. You have, one job, just stay at home. Stay at home. So it's not particularly in a downtown area, uptown area, midtown area. It's just, people that have it, unfortunately.
I mean, it's just, and what you just outlined to me, Carlos, was sort of startling because despite the fact that Governor Murphy initiated a directive, and obviously, we saw that there's a list when it comes to what's considered an essential business, what's considered non-essential. We know that Mayor Stack has been out and about with his staff, making sure that residents are being informed. I know Mayor Stack, along with his staff, are doing their due diligence to provide residents with up-to-date information as well as food and supplies, because not every resident in Union City, Carlos, is blessed with either home or enough food or enough supplies. And so I want to give a shout out to Brian, because Brian, again, I would argue is the best mayor anywhere in the state of New Jersey. I mean, the guy is working 24 hours a day, as well as all you good men and women in the Union City PD. I mean, this has to be exhausting, man, even during this pandemic.
It certainly is, and I second that. Shout out to Brian Stack. I don't think people realize the time and effort that this man takes. It's just overwhelming. I mean, the amount of phone calls, and he calls you back. He calls you back. He does. His constituents call him. He calls you back, and he's not only a mayor; he's a senator, a state senator, and people are scared, and it's okay to be scared. It's okay to ask questions. That's why he's in that position. He's a public employee, right? Just like I am, and I'm there for the public as well. But he's doing a fantastic job. People don't see it. Our chief, she's doing a fantastic job. I'm in constant communication with both. And I also got to give a shout out to Erin, who's the city clerk. I'm constantly calling her with ideas or questions. The purchasing office is doing a fantastic job. No, who would have thought, right? Purchasing. Nobody thinks
That's
about
right.
them. They're upstairs. They're upstairs in City Hall. But you have a girl like Becky Kolditz, who's trying to find companies for masks. Another company, maybe in Wichita, Kansas. I'm just throwing out a name. For gloves. So she's looking everywhere to get supplies for us, and thankfully, we do have supplies, PPE in the Union City Police Department, and that's thanks to the hard work from everybody. We have gloves, we have masks, we have alcohol, and our cars are being cleaned, disinfected, deconned, or our precinct was deconned, our locker rooms. So, it's a lot of work. Again, this has never been seen. I mean, I worked 9/11. That was a horrible time, and now I'm working this.
A shout out once again to Union City Police Officer Carlos Pina, his fellow men and women in blue at the Union City Police Department, of course, all members of law enforcement that are working so hard during this current coronavirus pandemic. It's sort of engulfing not just Hudson County, but all the state of New Jersey, as well as the rest of the country. Overall, folks, it was a very illuminating episode with both the Hudson County Democratic Organization Chairwoman, Amy DeGise, and Union City Police Officer Carlos Pina. For over 2 hours, we talked about a lot that's going on, not just in sort of today's everyday society, but of course, even the political climate as well. And you can listen to the episode in its entirety by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson. You can download the episodes and listen to them anywhere, anytime from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet. And now to some local stories for your consideration. Sticking here in Hudson County, folks, one of the big issues, of course, as a result of the current coronavirus pandemic is the HCDO reorganization meeting that was scheduled for June of this year will have to be rescheduled until 2021. Now, let me give a shout out here to John Hines, fellow journalist, and the great work that he does with Hudson County View. But the HCDO will indeed postpone their county committee elections until June of 2021 as a result of the current COVID-19 pandemic. Now, the chairwoman discussed this with me not only on the podcast, but of course, talking to other local media outlets. And let me just give you some context here about what's going on. Now, the chairwoman went on to say, quote, as we continue to dedicate all the resources at our disposal to fighting the current coronavirus global pandemic, the New Jersey Democratic State Committee has encouraged all chairs to explore the option of extending the terms of county committee members who were expected to face re-election this spring. In addition, she went on to say, quote, we are truly experiencing an unprecedented health crisis, and with restrictions on face-to-face interaction and mandated social distancing requirements rightfully put in place for the foreseeable future, our local parties and I believe that this is a policy we should implement. Now, the resolution we intend to pass will be a one-time, one-year extension only of the members who would have been on the ballot in June. Now, the chairwoman continued to sort of insist that this is necessary not only to sort of continue flattening the curve as it pertains to the coronavirus, but to also help alleviate the burden that's placed upon the Hudson County Clerk's Office, who has the responsibility, of course, of seeing what would have been the June 2nd primary election being contested solely via vote-by-mail ballots. Now, again, the chairwoman went on to say that, quote, the primary concern of the Hudson County Democratic Organization right now is working with our local and state officials to keep everyone safe, and we will continue to pray for everyone's health and well-being. Now, without a doubt, ladies and gentlemen, this is a great move not only by the Hudson County Democratic Organization chairwoman, but all the county chairs in the state of New Jersey. And of course, a shout out to State Chairman John Curry for also sort of encouraging the state chairs to pursue this course of action. Folks, again, I'm always very positive and very optimistic, but let's be very judicious and let's be very cautious. I don't want to sound apocalyptic, and this is certainly not me being hyperbolic by any stretch of the imagination, but I really don't see any sort of normalcy returning here to our daily lives until at least maybe sometime in mid to late June. It's important to self-quarantine as we're doing, and of course, preventing big gatherings such as this. And I remember back 2 years ago, in June of 2018, at the Kearney High School, it was a very hot and sweaty June afternoon, to say the very least, on that Tuesday. And hundreds upon hundreds of people crammed into the cafeteria at Kearney High School for that reorg meeting. And I'll tell you, it was unprecedented with the turnout, and of course, the intensity and the enthusiasm that engulfed that meeting. As we all know, Amy DeGise defeated Union City Mayor and State Senator Brian Stack for the chairmanship of the party. And since then, Amy DeGise has been very proactive and very hands-on in trying to sort of push forward the ideals of the Democratic Party. Now, there's been some division lately in terms of what's been going on with the primary process and what sectors of the Democratic Party are either trying to remain in the center or sort of moving very far to the left. In any event, Amy DeGise, I think, is doing a very good job here in sort of delaying the reorg meeting until June of 2021. And in the meantime, it's about keeping everybody safe and, of course, practicing responsible social distancing. And I think that's exactly what this sort of mandate is doing. Listen, it's only a one-year mandate when it comes to this specific initiative, and hopefully things will return back to normal. And the Democratic Party, at least in Hudson County, or at least statewide and also nationwide, can return to some sense of normalcy as the primary process is continuing. As we all know that the June primary would have taken place here in New Jersey. We don't know if it's still going to go on as scheduled. We'll find out what happens in the weeks and months ahead. But would anyone be surprised if it was postponed? Who knows? But with the upcoming convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in late July, a lot of things could possibly go wrong for the party as they're trying to select a nominee, even with delegates still not being decided. So again, we'll keep you posted here, folks, on the program as to what happens, not just with sort of the reorg meeting, because we know it is postponed until next year, but what's going to happen with the HCDO and who they ultimately are going to endorse in the primary whenever it is that it does indeed take place in the state of New Jersey. Another local story for your consideration, and of course, as we're all self-quarantined during this ongoing pandemic, folks, out on the front lines are the hardworking men and women in our grocery chains. And a shout out to Hudson County View and specifically Corey McDonald for reporting on this story. Now, no one would have ever thought about it a couple of weeks ago as we went food shopping, but indeed today, our hardworking men and women at our grocery stores are indeed considered essential workers. Let me just give you a little bit of context here just to sort of unravel what's going on right now. Now, it's a very sort of difficult scenario, folks, because as we're hoping that responsible social distancing is taking place, it's very difficult in our grocery stores and sort of supermarket chains with the amount of volume of people that are going in on a daily basis. Now, of course, for many of us that have stocked up on food for many weeks, maybe we don't have to go to the grocery store or the supermarket chains. But for others with larger families, maybe taking a couple extra trips to grocery stores and supermarket chains has indeed become necessary. And without a doubt, these hardworking men and women, hey, listen, they're putting hours in each and every day and putting their health at risk at times during this ongoing crisis. So a shout out to them for sort of, helping keep us fed and at the same time helping us out when we're going to these stores to pick up groceries and to pick up other essentials for our family members as we're stuck at home right now, binge watching shows on Netflix and Hulu, Disney Plus, and even on the WWE network. But of course, as we're doing that, we're trying to eat and of course, being productive at home. And the one thing that they can't do is sort of be productive at home currently because they're working so many hours. So who'd have thought it, folks, when we're always talking about sort of the food and service industry and hospitality, sometimes we never thought of these employees as essential, but now more than ever during this coronavirus crisis, they've indeed become that. They become essential to our daily existence. So a shout out to them. May they please stay safe and healthy and hopefully, keep working hard during this crisis to provide for us, but at the same time to stay safe out there because they're doing great work for us on a daily basis. So again, a shout out to them, whether it's your local grocery stores or even the bigger supermarket chains, as we see them working each and every day to keep us, of course, well fed and of course to keep us entertained in our homes. And hopefully we're doing that during this coronavirus crisis. And that's our show for this week. To check out all of the excellent programming brought to you by the Hudson Media Group and NJ On Air, go to their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com, www.livestream.com/HMGTV, and www.njonair.com. Don't forget to like the Hudson Media Group and NJ On Air on Facebook and also follow them both on Instagram and Twitter. And don't forget that live every Wednesday night, you can listen to the 3-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson. You can check it out from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet. Once again, as we're all self-quarantining, folks, you can check out all the excellent episodes there. And I welcome your feedback also on the Facebook page for Talking the Hudson, of course, the Instagram page, and also on Twitter. As a reminder, folks, again, please practice responsible social distancing. Stay in your homes when at all possible. Look after your elderly neighbors, your elderly family members. Look after any children. And of course, look after the most vulnerable, those that have current pre-existing conditions. We'll get through this, folks. We're a strong population. We're tough. We persevere. We've lived through 9/11, Hurricane Sandy, and now we're living through the coronavirus crisis. But if anyone can do it, it's us, New Jersey, and specifically here in Hudson County. So stay safe and healthy. My prayers to all of you as you're watching this at home. And folks, we'll get through this. Hopefully, in the next few weeks and months ahead, we'll return to normal during the summer months. In the meantime, never forget, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always talking politics right here with the Hudson Media Group and NJ On Air. I'm Fernando Uribe. Thank you so much for watching.
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.